Welcome back to our 5th episode of Abiotic Factor Story Mode. If this is your first time here, I suggest watching from the beginning. There will be a playlist in the description for your convenience. Previously, our subject explored deep into manufacturing, meeting the blacksmith, and finally reaching the surface tunnel, only to find it had been collapsed. Not one to be discouraged, they went on their way through the rest of manufacturing and surrounding tunnels, and finally got up the courage to take on the militants guarding the crane. Day 21. Big battle ahead. I started the day gathering materials and making sure my gear was in top-notch shape. Come afternoon, I went out to where the militants were, or, as my gate pal called them, members of the Order. I started with the ones on the ground. That was a bad idea. I knew there were militants in the upper layers of their makeshift base. Unfortunately, I did not predict that they would have a mounted machine gun, which I nearly died to. Fortunately, I was able to get away and get myself healed, before heading back into the fight, taking out more members of the Order. The air began to feel different, likely another biological incursion, but I wouldn't be at my base. I was set on trying to take them out all tonight. I fought well into the night, taking out militant after militant, only stopping when my spear was finally about to break. As I headed back to base, I saw a member of the Order fighting a security bot, and failing miserably. It was kinda brutal, to be honest. Anyways, back at my base, I decided to take a quick nap and repair my gear. I'm beginning to think it might be a smart idea to move base, or set up a checkpoint with necessities, but that's a future me problem. Day 22. I went back out after my nap and continued the fight. Having brought along a grinder weapon, which shot out grinding discs, I was able to take out the rest of the militants in the area without much issues. After having a short conversation with the person in the crane, they didn't show much interest in leaving. From there, I didn't really know where to go. I couldn't open the door that led to the synchrotron area, but I did notice on the map an area that I hadn't explored yet. A cave. I decided to take a quick peek and planned on exploring farther tomorrow. But almost immediately as I entered one of the buildings in the cave, I got jump scared by a sound pulling the trigger on my grinder, which ended up shooting a creature that was invisible. Continuing on my way, I found a passage that had a fleshy look to it. In it, I found some kind of larva. After killing it, I continued though, and eventually came across a very large version of the larva, wiggling its way through the tunnels. Heading back towards the base, at the plaza, I traded with Marion for porcelain shards. I didn't have a need for them at the moment, but I thought they might inspire me. At night, I found weird lights floating near my base. When I tried to grab them, they floated through my fingers, unable to grasp them. I came across the employee crawling on the ground and decided to give him some coffee, since he occasionally mentioned it. Day 23, on my way back to the cave, I stopped off at the blacksmith for an optic lens. While I was in the cave yesterday, I noticed a piece of machinery that needed one. After repairing the machine, it took me a moment to realize it let a laser pass through a pipe. Following the pipe led me to a locked tram station, and a large door I was able to open for easier access to the area. Continuing on my way along the pipe, I came to a fairly large area where, in the nearby building, I found FRAKE. Her plan was to overload the synchrotron, which would, theoretically, trigger a singularity to carve a hole to the surface, similar to what happened during an incident in 85. Unfortunately for us, all the quakes had broken the electron pumps, one of which was the thing that I repaired on my way here. So, that makes one down and two to go. After the conversation ended, I headed back to the blacksmith, who said they could get me the parts I needed, for a price, stating he had his own plans. He said, for some of the parts, he needed things from a different area, and to head to the tram station I saw earlier to see if there was something there. They gave me a recipe for a tram station key. From there, I headed back to base and crafted said key. Since it was getting late, I ended up hanging around the base for the rest of the night, mostly just purifying water. On day 24, the first thing I did was grab a fire proximity suit from the blacksmith. I didn't need it right now, but I figured it'd be better to have one and not need it and not have one. Heading to the tram station, I opened it up, and unfortunately had to take out more militants. Thankfully, I'd gotten good with the grinder and was able to take them down much easier. Inside, I located another tram, to no one's surprise. It brought me to the same stop as the other tram. Maybe I wouldn't have to move base if all the trams led back here, but we'll see. There was also a rift there, which, when jumping through, dropped me on top of a moving train. Talk about terrifying. Quickly making my way through the train, I found another member of the Order and a scientist seemingly arguing, though it was more the militant wondering why the scientist was feverishly shoveling coal into the train engine. Odd behavior for a member of the Order, not to shoot on sight, but maybe this one was different. Neither paid me any mind as I walked past them down through the train cars. As I made my way through the train cars, I had to take out a few militants on my way, going back to the tram station from time to unload my inventory. Before I was able to reach the last car in the train, my inventory and tram storage were full, so I decided to head back to base for the night from there. Day 25, I headed back to the train and made my way to the end, picking up everything I could on the way. At the last train car there was a rift, which I hopped through. After getting back to the facility, I began exploring farther into the caves, killing off more of those invisible creatures as I did. After finding nothing new in the first cave, I headed to the Fleshy cave, where I saw the larva before. Exploring deeper into this cave led me to some kind of monument. Past it a ways, I noticed an employee outline, and made that my goal to reach. After ducking in the tunnel when the giant larva passed, I found the hive. Unfortunately for me, my headlamp ran out of power a while ago, and I wasn't exploring this place in the dark. Heading to the marked employee, I found another bug? They didn't talk to me, but there was a rift nearby. That, when I jumped through, brought me in front of the monument again. Deciding to call it for the day, since my headlamp was out, I headed back to base. On my way, the familiar sense that the air was different came to me. Assuming another biological incursion, I prepped in my base. And similar to that one time, rifts didn't spawn. And I assumed it had happened in another part of the facility again. But then, I heard it. The sound of a radio. I didn't fully grasp what was happening until I saw a member of the Order, realizing it wasn't a biological incursion, but an attack from the Order. I fought for my life. Thankfully, as soon as I heard the radio, I had the sense to craft more ammo for my grinder. After a short but intense fight, the attack was over and things felt normal again. And, per my routine, I went to sleep. Maybe tomorrow, I'd explore farther into the hive. On day 26, I began with repairing and recharging my gear, as well as starting to melt some solder, which the blacksmith wanted for one of the parts to repair the electron pumps. Heading to the hive again, I explored as much as I could find, finding a few more odd monuments and killing many more bugs. But in the end, I couldn't find anything of note, besides the fact it looked like I needed some kind of shell or stone, which is similar to the one in the giant larva. Maybe I should find a way to kill it. I'll come back later. That is, unless I can overload the synchrotron, creating a singularity, and breaching the surface. With that, that is the end of today's video. If you enjoyed, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you next week.